Okay, so picture this. You're in River State, Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
and the vibe is tense. Everybody's kind of looking over their shoulder. Nobody knows who's really in charge.
Right, like a political thriller almost.
Exactly. It's a real-life political drama unfolding right now, and that's exactly what we're diving deep into today.
Yeah, this is a fascinating case, because it really highlights how personal loyalties and these like power struggles can completely overshadow any formal processes, even in a democracy.
Totally. And let me tell you, there's enough drama here to rival any TV show.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We've got Governor Fubara, who's, trying to assert his own authority.
Right.
Then you have his predecessor, former Governor Wike, who is now the FCT minister, but he's like still pulling strings behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah, he's not going away quietly.
No, not at all. And then you have this whole group of lawmakers caught right in the middle of these two powerful figures.
Yeah, so where do we even begin with this?
Well, I think the best place to start is with this recent court ruling that just dropped because it's added even more fuel to this already like raging fire.
Yeah, this ruling could have serious ripple effects, not just in River State, but throughout Nigeria.
Exactly. So to really understand what's going on now, we need to rewind a bit and go back to the beginning.
Okay, so let's set the stage.
So initially when Governor Fubara took office, he seemed to be distancing himself from Wike's influence, maybe trying to kind of step out of his predecessor's shadow a bit.
Yeah, that's pretty standard for a new leader, right? You want to establish your own identity.
Right. But Wike, he's not exactly known for being, passive.
Definitely not. He's got a reputation for being very assertive.
So how did Wike respond to Fubara kind of like trying to do his own thing?
Well, he basically told all his loyalists in the State House of Assembly, and we're talking about 27 lawmakers here.
Wow, 27.
Yeah, to basically start impeachment proceedings against Fubara.
Whoa, hold on, wait. I mean, that's a huge power move to order the impeachment of your own successor.
It is. It really shows how quickly these power dynamics can shift and how personal these conflicts can get.
Okay, so we've got Wike flexing his political muscle, trying to take down Fubara, but then things get even more complicated.
What happened?
These pro-Wike lawmakers, they all decided to defect from the People's Democratic Party, the PDP.
Oh, wow. And that is a big deal.
Huge deal.
Because by defecting, they potentially lose their legal standing as lawmakers.
So they can't actually impeach Fubara.
Well, that's the legal question, right? Can you quit your job and then try to fire your old boss?
I mean, it doesn't seem like it would work that way, right?
Exactly. So you can imagine this sparked a massive legal battle with both sides claiming they're the legitimate authority in the State House of Assembly.
So basically total chaos.
Pretty much. And then right in the middle of all this, the Court of Appeal drops this huge ruling.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting.
So tell me about this ruling.
Well, the court ruled that Governor Fubara has to represent the 2024 budget to the Assembly, but specifically to the Assembly that's led by the pro-Wike speaker.
Okay, so Martin M. Hole.
Yes, him. So at first glance, the pro-Wike camp saw this as a total win, like their claim to power had been validated.
Right.
But it's not that simple, because then you have people like Chief Eze.
Who's Chief Eze?
He's a big name in the APC.
Okay.
And he's arguing that this ruling doesn't actually address the fact that those lawmakers switched sides. He says they may have already lost their seats entirely by defecting.
And he's got a point. There's a section of the Nigerian Constitution, Section 109 IG, that specifically deals with what happens when lawmakers defect.
Okay, so the Constitution is like the rule book for how this whole political game is played.
Exactly. And this section basically says if you switch teams mid-game, there are consequences.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this is getting really messy.
Oh, yeah, and it gets even messier because Chief Eze isn't just making legal arguments. He's going after Wike publicly.
Oh, really? How so?
He's calling Wike out for trying to destabilize River State, and he's even accusing him of using these lawmakers as pawns in his own personal vendetta against Fubara.
Wow, so he's basically saying that Wike is like that disgruntled ex-employee who quits but then keeps trying to sabotage the company from the outside.
That's a great analogy. And he doesn't hold back. He calls Wike's actions impudent and warns that he's on a path to destroy the state.
He's really painting a picture of Wike as this puppet master, pulling the strings behind the scenes, all to settle a score.
Yeah, it's pretty dramatic stuff.
Yeah.
And he even goes so far as to call out the judges involved in the case.
What does he say about the judges?
He warns them not to become partisan agents of wrongdoers, basically questioning their integrity.
Wow, that's a bold move.
It is. It raises concerns about political influence on the courts, which is always a sensitive issue in a democracy, especially in a country like Nigeria with its history of political instability.
Okay, so we've got this legal battle playing out, and then you have this war of words happening in the media.
It's a multifaceted conflict with a lot of moving parts.
And a lot at stake.
Absolutely. The outcome of this could have major consequences, not just for River State, but for the future of Nigerian democracy.
This is definitely a situation we need to keep a close eye on.
Agreed. This story is far from over. Yeah, it's a pretty strong statement, and it taps into this broader question of, can the courts really stay impartial when you have these powerful political figures involved?
Right, and what happens if the courts actually do side against those pro-white lawmakers? Like, what if they say, yeah, you defected, you lost your seats, game over?
Well, that would be a huge victory for Fubara and a major setback for Wike's influence in River State politics.
But Wike's a fighter, right? Do you think he'd just accept defeat and walk away quietly?
Wike's got a reputation for being tenacious. He's not afraid to challenge rulings or use his connections to get what he wants. This could drag on for months or even years.
So we could be seeing a lot more legal battles and political maneuvering, even if the courts rule against the lawmakers.
Exactly. And while all this is going on, what about the people of River State?
Yeah.
They're the ones caught in the middle of this power struggle.
Right. I mean, all this uncertainty can't be good for the state.
Nah.
How does this impact things like government services or the economy?
It creates a lot of instability. Government services could be disrupted. Infrastructure projects might stall. Businesses are going to be hesitant to invest in a place where the political situation feels like a ticking time bomb.
And it just creates this climate of fear and distrust.
Exactly. It's a lose-lose situation for everyone except maybe the politicians who are benefiting from the chaos.
It also feels like this is a test for Nigerian democracy itself.
Yeah.
Can the country's institutions withstand this kind of pressure? Can the rule of law prevail over these personal ambitions?
It's a critical moment,
Mm.
and all eyes are on River State, watching how this unfolds.
And speaking of key moments, let's go back to that Court of Appeal ruling that told Governor Fubara to resubmit the budget to that Emma Hall-led assembly. I mean, that feels like a real turning point in this whole saga.
It definitely is. And remember, this ruling came after a federal high court judgment, which Fubara initially appealed.
Right, right.
But then President Tinubu himself steps in and urges Fubara to withdraw the appeal.
Whoa, so even the president's getting involved now.
He's encouraged. It seems like he's trying to encourage a more negotiated solution. Maybe he sees that as the best way to de-escalate the situation.
I mean, it makes sense. He probably wants to avoid a full-blown constitutional crisis.
Exactly. Plus, he's got to be mindful of the dynamics within his own party, the APC.
Because Chief Eze, the one who's been so vocal against Wike, he's a prominent figure in the APC.
Right, so Tinubu has to be careful not to alienate people like Eze while also trying to manage this volatile situation in River State.
So he's walking a tightrope here.
Definitely. It's a delicate balancing act.
But getting back to that Court of Appeal ruling, some people see it as a win for Wike, while others say it doesn't actually address the legality of those lawmakers defecting.
And it gets even more confusing when you remember that Fubara initially presented the budget to a completely different assembly, one that didn't include those pro-Wike lawmakers.
So we've got multiple assemblies claiming legitimacy, conflicting court rulings, and a whole lot of political posturing.
It's a recipe for confusion and instability and makes it really hard to predict what's going to happen next.
It really is a tangled web. But let's just say hypothetically that those pro-Wike lawmakers actually do manage to impeach Governor Fubara. I mean, what would that even look like for Rivers State?
Oh, that would be incredibly messy. Like, we'd be talking major instability. Fubara's supporters wouldn't just sit back and watch. It'd likely lead to even more legal battles. And there's a real risk of violence breaking out.
So not exactly a peaceful outcome.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And beyond the immediate chaos, you also have to consider the long-term damage to Nigeria's democratic institutions. I mean, their credibility is already being tested in this whole situation.
Right. So where do we even go from here? Like, what are some of the potential scenarios that could play out?
Well, one possibility is that the courts, they finally issue a clear ruling on whether those lawmakers lost their seats when they defected. That would at least remove some of the legal ambiguity and maybe open up a path towards some kind of resolution.
But even then, I mean, knowing Wike, he's not going to just give up that easily.
No, definitely not. He's going to keep fighting to maintain his influence in River State.
So maybe another possibility is that the federal government steps in more forcefully and tries to broker some kind of deal between these two warring factions.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. President Tinubu has already shown he's willing to get involved, and he might feel like he needs to take more decisive action if things keep escalating.
But that's a risky move too, right? I mean, if
Yeah,
he intervenes too much, it could look like he's overstepping his boundaries and interfering in state-level politics.
exactly. It's a tough balancing act. He needs to stabilize the situation, but also respect the autonomy of River State.
So basically, we're left with a ton of uncertainty and a whole lot of what-ifs.
Yeah, this story's definitely got a lot more chapters left.
It's a stark reminder of how fragile democracy can be and, how dangerous unchecked ambition can be.
Absolutely. The pursuit of power can have a really high cost, not just for the politicians involved, but for everyone.
Well said. And to our listeners, I just want to say, stay tuned, stay informed, because your voices matter. This is a story that's far from over.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, think about the bigger picture here. What does this conflict tell us about power, about the importance of strong institutions, and about the role citizens play in safeguarding a healthy democracy? These are questions we should all be asking ourselves.
Excellent points. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and be sure to tune in next time when we'll be exploring another fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking the tough questions.